Welcome to Resiliency Redefined. I'm your host, Robyne, and I am thrilled to share with you information about resiliency, well-being, performance, education, business, parenting, and everything in between. I'm committed to joining you each week to talk about these big ideas and bring them into action, habits, tools, strategies, tactics that allow us to finally uncover what it takes to truly be well. And I'm just so excited that you're here. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Resiliency Redefined. So to continue this role that we are on, I'm answering people's questions. And again, feel free at any point to share any curiosity or wonderment that you have. Today's question, I'm excited actually to dive into it. It's so simple, but I think it's going to relate to a lot of folks, including myself. Why do we self-sabotage? Okay, why do we lose sight of our goals? Why do we get off track? Why is it that we feel like we self-sabotage? We know better. We don't always necessarily do better. So for today's episode, we will dive into that question, and I hope to offer some key insights that will hopefully help minimize this type of behavior. So first and foremost, you are not alone. The knowing and doing gap is real. We know better, but we don't always necessarily do better. Or perhaps as we're engaging in the behavior that might be off course, we're doing it for a reason. So the first big idea I want to share with you is this: every behavior serves a purpose. Absolutely every single behavior serves a purpose. Even though you might think it has no purpose whatsoever, it actually does. Protest behavior, procrastination, all of it serves a purpose, including self-sabotage. Now, how we can explore this idea of self-sabotage is to look at it from two different perspectives: the inward factors or intrinsic factors, and the external or outside factors. I thought it'd be fun actually to start with some outside factors that contribute to self-sabotage or to this idea of abandoning our goals. Now, I love the research that talks about this idea about the external factors that influence our kind of, again, abandoning our goals or losing track. Now, what we know often is that we are relying on outside pieces of information to make decisions. And one of the maybe unexpected ways where we might see self-sabotage be impacted by external factors is a phenomena that is referred to as tall poppy syndrome. This phenomena in social culture is absolutely fascinating. Tall poppy syndrome, which is this: we want to be successful, but not too successful. We want to do really great, but not too great. And the idea is that, and why it uses this analogy of a tall poppy syndrome, is that when poppies are growing, like the flower, when they are growing, what starts to happen is that there is a risk that the tallest poppy in a field is going to get picked. So poppies like purposely start to like pull themselves downward so that they can decrease the likelihood that they are going to be picked. So again, we want to be successful, but not too successful. We want to like be wealthy, but not too wealthy, where people will start to judge, criticize, or have an opinion. So the notion behind tall poppy syndrome is that because we're so concerned about external pressures, thoughts, rejection, questioning, whatever it might be, is that we on purpose hold ourselves back just a wee bit. Now, that doesn't mean that we like completely blow off the tires, but what it is that we actually like are afraid of our greatness. We're nervous, perhaps a wee bit. There's some trepidation about being too successful of anything, because it increases the likelihood, or what we think of like the surface area, that we are exposing ourselves to other people's judgments about us, or who does she think she is doing this, or just this idea of criticism, rejection, or fear, which as social beings we're very sensitive to. We want to make sure we belong to the group. We want to be accepted and included in the group. So anytime we do anything that could put that at risk, we're going to start to do behaviors that might limit that, close down that surface area, make it so we aren't as susceptible to those criticisms. Now, the other notion that ties into this is that, and this is one of my favorite kind of ways of looking at this, is that the people who engage in that type of negative behavior, like that they're trying to take somebody down, they're trying to pull somebody back, they're criticizing, they're judgmental, they have very strong opinions. Nobody who is ahead of you would ever do that to you. Okay. So nobody who is ahead of you in their own race will ever look back at somebody starting out and criticize them. And this is what, here's more examples of this. So, for example, no one who is ahead of you is going to ever criticize you, not ever, 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 such a big word, but likely is going to. It's the same as like the person at the gym isn't going to make fun of you for your first day at the gym, right? The person who, an entrepreneur is not going to tell you that, that's, not a good idea putting yourself out there and starting your own business. Sometimes we actually get more support from strangers on the internet than we do from people in our own family system. Now, the people within our family system and our friend circles, they might be well intended and they're maybe trying to, make sure that you don't get hurt. Maybe they're trying to protect you in their own way, but limiting you isn't actually a form of protection. I would much prefer to go into something boldly and bravely than to have never tried it at all and then have the support of the people around me to like help me kind of bounce back if I need to versus me never even trying. So again, when we think about who is it that's criticizing, it's people who aren't in the race. I love how Dr. Brene Brown talks about it as when she references the famous quote about man in the arena or person in the arena by Roosevelt. It's the idea that people who are in the arena, like people who are actually like blood, sweat, and tears trying something, are never going to judge you. It's the people in the grandstands. It's the people who are in the spectator seats, right? That peanut gallery, so to speak. Those are the people that are going to try and pull you back. Those are the people that influence or exercise some of those practices that we see within tall poppy syndrome. So again, because we know those grandstands and all those people around us who perhaps don't see value in what we're doing, because that's really shining a mirror on the fact that they probably aren't taking risks. They aren't leaning into their skills, talents, and their gifts. And when they see other people using their skills, their talents, and their gifts, that creates this uncomfortableness. It creates this like discomfort to the point where they're going to lash out at anyone who is exhibiting the behaviors that they themselves aren't able to do. Okay, so tall poppy syndrome, again, it's this external factor that does have an internal implication because we start to limit ourselves, so to speak. We start to hold ourselves back. So what's really important is to be aware of the information that we're listening to and the people that we are listening to. I hope that if you're about to start something big and brave and bold and new, my hope for you is that you can find people that like surround you with the same type of energy as like drunk women in a bathroom at a bar. I don't know about anybody else, but I think actually one of the greatest like champions for people's doing good things and great things and new things is the energy of like drunk women in a bathroom at a bar. I tell you, those women they will build you up. They are your personal hype squad. If you've ever gone into a restroom or at a party and a bunch of girls are together in that space in a restroom, let me tell you, they are dusting you off. They are, they are fixing your makeup. They are straightening your dress. They are pushing you out there with so much confidence. I love it. I wish we can like bottle some of that belief that women share in bathrooms. Cause let me tell you, it's a hype squad. It's pretty remarkable. You want to have that in your life. You want people that are going to say, yes, you can do these things. I believe in you, not remind you of all the times you've tried big ideas and they haven't necessarily landed how you had hoped. So the people that you surround yourself with are going to really help buffer the effect of tall poppy syndrome. Okay, so that's like the outside world being really judgy. So then that way we kind of keep the blast radius small. One of my favorite examples of an experience that I had when it came to tall poppy syndrome was when my first book, Calm Within the Storm, A Pathway to Everyday Resiliency, was coming out. I remember having this opportunity, and I've shared this on an earlier episode. I remember having this opportunity to be on a very popular US morning show. They were very excited to hear about this book about resiliency, and they had invited me on a guest spot. And at the same time, I was asked to do a radio interview for a very, very small radio station up Northern Ontario. And I remember looking at both of these offers, one to like be in New York, this big, massive American radio, this big TV show in the mornings, or to do this like radio in a very small town that I would say maybe would have like 100 listeners. That might be being exaggerating, but nevertheless, I had these two opportunities and I looked at them and guess what I picked? I picked the tiny little obscure radio station and I laced it. I justified it to myself as I'm Canadian. I want to support a Canadian piece. If I was to blow away all of the excuses, it was simply because I was afraid. I wanted to keep the blast radius of criticism so small. I didn't want to put myself out there on a larger stage because then people would potentially critique the work or have opinions about whether or not, I should be the one who is talking about this. And again, I felt all this fear and I wanted to like protect myself from that, which totally makes sense. It's a survival mechanism. We want to trust those intuitions and those instincts that want to keep us safe, but not at the cost of being afraid of our greatness, not at the cost of us taking on challenge, these new opportunities. Because at the end of the day, I wholeheartedly believe those opportunities will not present themselves to you if you are not ready. Now, we might not feel ready, but again, to tie into a quote that was from the movie, it was from the book, sorry, We Bought a Zoo. You only need insane courage for like 20 seconds. You only need insane courage for like 20 seconds to show up. And more often than not, it's going to work out. You just have to step into it. Okay, so first explanation around self sabotage connects to that idea of external tall poppy syndrome, trying to stay safe, minimizing the blast radius, and like that kind of contact point of people to have opinions about our work. So that's one. Now, the other, and this is so fascinating, the other leading variable that I see around self sabotage behavior when I'm working with my clients or with groups and organizations around the world, I believe internally that most people self sabotage because they can control the outcome. They can control the outcome. It's this idea that it's like finding a way to control something that feels out of control or something that feels too big or too complex. So, for example, if I have a new workout in the morning that I want to try and I'm going to get up early and try this new thing, and maybe I'm a bit nervous, if I stay up all night reading and I don't have the energy in the morning to do it, then I'm controlling a variable. So I can predict that part. I can't predict what that new experience is going to be. And the unknown is scary. So we actually like self sabotage, whatever that might look like, as a means of control, as a means of knowing how this is going to turn out, knowing how this is going to end. So again, we're doing it in a way to try and protect ourselves from this time. It's not the discomfort and judgment of others. It's the discomfort of us being outside of control of the outcome. So we get our control back by screwing it up, by, throwing in the towel, by having a lot of these limiting beliefs because it's our way to try and feel safe, even if the situation isn't optimal. So often we do it again to try and feel safe but we're doing it at the expense of our greatness. And I believe it was, I'm trying to remember who the author was. I believe the author was Marianne Williamson in her book, A Return to Love, where she wrote the quote, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are more powerful beyond measure." Our deepest fear is that we are more powerful beyond measure, that we are more capable, we are more resourced, we're more able to achieve these big, bold, bright dreams. So, this idea that if we kind of stick to kind of keeping it safe, playing small, not putting ourselves out there, not getting our hopes up, right? This idea about trying to prevent that disappointment or that lack of control of outcome, it's a way that we're trying to stay safe. The other piece around why we self sabotage often, again, is this idea that it's the familiar, that uncertainty is just really upsetting for a lot of people. It's why people stay in really toxic work environments and relationships for way longer than they should, because it's a known factor. It's a known variable versus the unknown. So, what is the remedy? So, if we've identified these are some of the factors that contributed, what are some of the remedies? Now, we've already scratched the surface of one. Surrounding ourselves with the right people can help us feel safe. That sense of belonging, that sense of trust, that feeling of conditionalless support, that is going to be really helpful. The other is to do a wee bit of an autopsy, a living autopsy on ourselves in terms of looking at our go-to excuses. I believe it was my friend Shane Hewitt who said the lies we tell ourselves, right? That what are those kind of lies that we tell ourselves? Like, I don't have enough time, or it wouldn't have worked out anyway, or perhaps this isn't the right time, right? This isn't the right time for me to do that. Well, a little side note on that notion, there is never a right time. There is never a time it makes sense to go back to school. There is never a time when it makes sense to write the book. There is never a time when it makes sense to take that risk or to dial in your health and your nutrition. Like, there's never a right time. There's always going to be obstacles. There'll be challenges. That's part of the lived experience. So when is it the right time? When you decide. When you just take that first step that says it's going to be now. It's going to happen now. Another little piece on that idea too is checking in with some of those go-to excuses. What are some of those limiting beliefs or those go-to excuses that we're using that, again, ultimately are well-intended? They're trying to keep us safe. Same as our loved ones or people around us who try to say, like, don't get your hopes up. Now, they don't come out, I don't think, that blatantly and say, don't get your hopes up. But they say things like, is that your best choice? Or do you think that's, where you should put your focus or your energy? Or again, they find ways of cushioning that piece of feedback. But ultimately, they don't want to see you get hurt. And there's nothing wrong with that. We don't want to see our loved ones or people we care about going through hard seasons. Yet we also want to send the message that we believe that they could figure it out and that they don't have to figure it out alone. So who we are with makes a difference. Being mindful of some of those narratives, some of those stories, maybe some of those really old stories, like we talked about last day, that we carry with us that tie into our self-efficacy and our self-esteem. And remember, our beliefs are just practiced ideas. Our beliefs are just practiced thoughts, that we practice them enough over and over again that they become beliefs. But again, when you think about it, when we are first out here in the universe, when we first come to be, we only have two things that we're scared of: heights and loud noises. Everything else is conditioned. So biologically, from an evolutionary perspective, heights and loud noises, those are the only things that we're actually scared of. Everything else gets conditioned. We get groomed, we get exposed to different life circumstances, or even parents that are going to carry some of those fears forward. So again, not getting our hopes up, being scared of failure, we actually create that. That is something that we are taught. It isn't something that's innate to who we are. So just remember, if you're starting to feel fear, you picked it up along the way, unless it's loud noises and heights. On a completely other random little tangent, since we're taking tangents, a sign of burnout that often gets overlooked, like we often talk about these ideas about, cynicism, exhaustion, and errors. One of the other variables, now we don't use this in a diagnostic perspective, but it gives us some really good insight. Working with people right now that I keep hearing and we keep revisiting, it's being startled by loud noises. Now, of course, again, we have a biological reaction to loud noises, but when people are in this chronic state of stress and distress, you're going to notice that they are a wee bit more jumpy when it comes to loud noises or anything that startles them because their nervous system is fried. Okay, that's not what we're talking about. Well, kind of talking about it, but let us get back on track so we can land this plane. When we think about self-sabotage, the behaviors that we are exhibiting, that we're practicing, ultimately what's happening is it is serving a need that is more imminent than the long-term goal. It's serving a need, any type of procrastination or protest behavior. It is serving a more immediate need to have control or to feel safe than the benefit that we would have if we stuck through and followed through with that goal that's more long term. So to be able to work with self-sabotaging, it's to recognize those needs are important and to recognize those feelings. So motivation is what gets us started with these big ideas. It's going to be the discipline that allows us to be consistent enough for us to be able to follow through. But again, recognizing we get these big ideas, we get this motivation, we're set ourselves up on track, but we want to ensure that we have that discipline to even recognize that little nagging voice that's like, oh, it'd be easier just to do this. Or again, don't get your hopes up. My gentle invitation to land this plane is please get your hopes up. Please get your hopes up that you deserve and you are worthy of whatever that big, bold, audacious goal is. I love seeing people win. I love seeing people stretch and expand and start to achieve goals and dreams that they never even thought were possible. And the only way we can do that is to get our hopes up again. So my friends, thanks for joining me today. I hope that was useful. Please keep asking me your questions and I look forward to connecting next time. And in the meantime, whatever that thing is, it's the right time to do it because you said it was. Take good care. Bye for now. Thank you for spending time with this podcast episode today. I hope you found something helpful in Resiliency Redefined. Please feel free to share it with somebody who you might think could benefit. Maybe there was something useful, something in particular that you think you could pay forward. Also, if you have a moment, please feel free to rate and review this podcast wherever you like to listen to your podcast. It means the world to me. And again, thanks for your time. Thank you for your interest. Take good care, and I'll see you next time.